Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are really going deep. We've got this stack of incredible historical source material and narrative called the Furnace Road, and we're going to extract the core insights for you.
We are. We're taking a journey, really, into a foundational struggle in American life.
Yeah, the brutal war between corporate capital and organized labor in the early 20th century.
That's right. And this deep dive is tailored for you to understand the years between, say, 1907 and 1912. We're following one man, Martin Voss. He's a German immigrant, a miner.
And we see him go through the copper mines of Montana, a place called Breckenridge, and then later into the coal fields near Scranton, Pennsylvania.
And this is, well, it's more than just history. It's like an X-ray of what the sources call the mathematics of exploitation, the very system that built modern America.
So our mission for you is pretty straightforward. We want to understand how this massive corporate power just systematically crushed these early union efforts.
But there's a bigger question, isn't there?
Yes. Why, in the face of just constant, overwhelming defeat, did workers like Martin Voss keep fighting at all?
Well, let's start with Voss himself. He's 28, smart, very strong, a powerful guy.
But in Breckenridge, Montana, none of that matters. His physical strength is, well, it's irrelevant.
And the setting is so critical here. The Anaconda Company, they didn't just run the mines. They owned everything.
Everything. The smelter, the company store, the boarding houses.
And crucially, the law. The company was the state.
And the environment itself just reflects that total control. I mean, the sources describe these winters hitting 40 degrees below zero.
Which then swing into summers where you're choked by toxic smelter smoke. Smoke so acidic, it kills every living thing for miles.
So you're either freezing or you're being poisoned. It's an environment built for one thing, right? Extraction.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get into the event that really kicks off Martin Voss's journey in 1907. It's this immediate, terrifying catalyst.
A cave-in. It traps him for 18 hours. He survives. 12 other men do not.
And the details are just relentless. I mean, he's pinned down there in the dark.
Next to two of the men who don't make it out. One dies very slowly, and the other just descends into madness before the rescue team can even get to them.
And this is where we see what the source calls the mathematics of blood. What was the company's response to this catastrophe?
It was swift, and it was brutally cynical. The company doctor clears all the survivors to go back to work within 3 days.
3 days, no recovery time.
None. And for the families of the 12 men who died, they got a settlement of, well, a month's wages. We're talking maybe $30, $40.
And 2 weeks to get out of the company house.
That's it.
$30. That was the value of a human life. It's hard to even process that disconnect, especially when Martin reads in the paper that Anaconda's profit that year was $4.2 million.
And the sheer scale of that imbalance, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
The sources make it really clear this wasn't an accident or incompetence. It was a calculated business decision. Well, if they offered any real compensation, they'd set a precedent. It would increase their operating costs for the future. So the cost of compensating a human life was kept lower than the cost of, say, real safety measures.
So it was structurally cheaper to just let men die.
Then to buy better timbering or install proper ventilation, yes.
And the men who survive are thrown right back into that furnace.
They are. And even if you avoided a cave-in, the work itself was a guaranteed slow death. Voss is working the 1200 levels, 90 degrees down there.
The air is thick with sulfur. The drills kick like a mule.
But look at his partner, Kowalski. He's only 34. And the sources give him this devastating detail. A deep, wet cough that meant silicosis.
We hear that term a lot, silicosis or miner's consumption. For anyone listening, what exactly was happening inside these men's lungs?
It's vital to understand this. The drilling creates this superfine rock dust, silica dust.
Yeah.
You can't avoid breathing it.
And over time,
it settles in your lungs and your body. Your body tries to encase it. The soft lung tissue basically calcifies. It turns to stone. You slowly suffocate. It was just an accepted part of the job.
So when the company holds the inquest after the cave-in, the whole thing is just for show. The sources call it a ritual of absolution.
Exactly. The verdict was decided before it even started. The company officials were just there to say the collapse was unforeseeable, an act of God.
Not negligence.
Never negligence.
And that brings us to Martin's moment.
This terrible choice.
He's called to testify. He knows the timbering was garbage.
He knows it was inadequate.
But he gets up there and he confirms the company line. Says the conditions were no worse than elsewhere in the mine. He chooses, as the book says, safety over truth.
And that choice, it hurts him more than the rockfall ever could. He leaves that inquest filled with this deep self-disgust.
He realizes he traded his testimony for complicity, just to keep his job.
Just to survive. The system forced him to break his own moral center.
And that feeling just eats at him until he's confronted, right? Someone calls him on it.
The widow of Carl Peterson, one of the men who died, she got her $30 and her eviction notice.
And she forces Martin to look her in the eye and lie about how her husband died.
Yeah, she asks if it was quick. He gives her the lie she needs to hear for her own peace. But that single interaction, it just ignites something in him, a fire. He can't be a compliant machine anymore.
And that fire leads him straight to this radical new idea brought in by a Finnish socialist named Mäkelä, the IWW.
The industrial workers of the world, the Wobblies.
What made them so different from the other unions at the time?
Their whole philosophy was revolutionary. They believed that all workers, skilled, unskilled, no matter their nationality or race, had to unite in one big union.
Whereas traditional unions only protected the skilled guys.
Right, leaving the vast majority of exploited immigrant laborers, like Voss, totally isolated. The IWW wasn't just after better wages. They wanted to challenge the whole system of capital itself.
So Martin joins. He channels all that personal rage into a disciplined movement.
And the strategy they use is patient. It's almost invisible at first.
Mäkelä tells them, impatience will kill us.
So they focus on building trust first. Tiny, incremental steps. And they choose their wedge issue perfectly. Safety.
Why safety?
Because every single miner, even the company man working next to you, is terrified of being buried alive. It's a resistance built on a shared mortal fear.
But the company, they're not stupid. They see this slow burn happening and they escalate.
They do. They start cutting corners on timber contracts even more, making the mines more dangerous. And then they target Martin directly.
He gets jumped.
By company enforcers,
Yeah.
Wiley and Moss. And it's this calculated, chilling thing, a courtesy beating. It's designed to intimidate him without leaving any marks that would hold up in court.
They're trying to break him psychologically before a strike can even start.
But the paradox of that violence is, it completely backfires.
How so?
It just clarifies everything for Martin. He realizes the company isn't all-powerful. They're afraid. The beating is proof of their fear.
And instead of breaking them up,
It brings them together. A dozen new workers show up the next day asking how to join the union. The company's own weapon becomes a recruiting tool.
but even with that momentum, the strike they launch in April 1908 it collapses almost instantly.
Yeah, 400 men walk out. They shut the mine down completely. For 3 days.
And that's all the time they had.
The failure was purely about resources. They had the solidarity, they just had no money. The company hits back with immediate mass evictions.
Forcing whole families into this muddy, freezing tent city.
Then the Pinkertons arrive, scabs cross the line, and the strike fund is gone in a matter of days.
Yeah.
It's a war of attrition they were built to lose.
Martin even tries for a principled retreat, right? He suggests they just negotiate for the initial safety demands.
But the company offers zero negotiation. Their goal wasn't just to win. It was to crush the very idea of organizing.
And the final surrender sounds just humiliating.
It is. The men have to go back one by one, forced to sign these statements renouncing the union, accepting lower pay.
And the foreman, Carmichael, he just twists the knife, tells Martin he's letting him work so he can live with your failure.
And this is where the company rolls out what the source calls the machinery of forgetting. The defeat had to be psychological, not just economic.
How did that machinery work? What did they do?
It was enforced loneliness. They staggered lunch breaks so men couldn't talk. They rotated foremen constantly. They put spies everywhere.
So the men started avoiding eye contact.
Yeah, you were afraid to be seen talking to a known organizer. Martin is completely isolated. He's reduced back to being a machine that works until it breaks. That human connection, that solidarity, was systematically dismantled.
So Voss leaves. He gets out of Breckenridge and heads east to the Pennsylvania coalfields near Scranton. His brother Carl is there.
Right. And if you think the landscape gets better, it doesn't. The sources describe it as even worse. Scarred, pockmarked with mine entrances and slag heaps.
But the struggle there is different. It's on a larger scale.
On a more strategic scale. The union in PA is better established. They have a real infrastructure. And they plan their strike for November, right when winter coal demand is at its absolute peak.
Smart. But the dangers are the same, I assume.
Exactly the same. Gas explosions are a constant threat, and the long-term killer is black lung, the coal miners' version of silicosis. The structural violence is identical.
And the company tries the same old trick, a 10% wage cut to force an early, disorganized strike.
But this time, the union has a brilliant countermove. The slowdown.
The slowdown.
Yeah.
What was that exactly?
It's a tactic called work to rule. Instead of walking out, the miners stay on the job. But they follow every single safety rule to the absolute letter. Perfectly.
So it's not a strike, it's hyper-compliance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the effect.
Yeah.
Production plummets by 30%. The company can't fire them for being safe, but it's costing them a fortune every day. It's using the system's own rules against it.
It's brilliant. But once the strike does officially begin, we're talking 20,000 miners walking out. The state gets involved.
Inevitably. The company refuses to negotiate, they issue an ultimatum, and then the state militia arrives.
Which raises this huge question Martin was facing, right? When does a labor dispute stop being a labor dispute?
And become a matter of state violence? When do striking workers become criminals in the eyes of the law?
And facing armed soldiers, and with their strike fund bleeding out, they have to give in. They vote to accept these humiliating terms.
Wages are restored, yes, but no union recognition, no safety guarantees. It looks like another crushing defeat.
It really does.
And yet this is where the story shifts. It moves from just defeat to this profound philosophical strength. Big Bill Haywood, the IWW leader, he writes to Martin.
What does he say?
He says, "Your strike was not a failure. Defeat may prove to be education for victories tomorrow."
So what was the victory hidden inside that failure?
Martin realizes the fight was never really about the wage scale. It was about dignity, about human worth.
And we see that with the old miner, Dombrowski, beaten by Pinkertons. But he looks back on the strike and says,
He says, "For 1 month, I was a man instead of a machine." That was the victory, the temporary lived experience of being fully human.
So by 1912, Martin Voss is still organizing. He's physically marked by this war. He's got a limp from a rock fall in Nevada, scarred hands, lungs that wheezed.
He accepts that the furnace road had no destination. There was no final win condition. But the walking itself, the struggle, that's what mattered.
And the lesson for us, looking back now, is that these power dynamics between capital and labor, they're structurally persistent. They haven't gone away.
Not at all. And those early brutal defeats, they were pointless. They were the necessary education. They were the accumulated weight of countless small resistances that eventually built every later right and safety regulation we take for granted today.
So the lesson Voss learns, the one we can really extract here, is that organizing is patient education, slow organizing. It's not just about one grand speech or spontaneous rage. It's the long game.
It is. I mean, we've explored how this early industrial power just controlled everything, from your house to your health, and how workers responded again and again by choosing collective dignity over their own individual temporary security.
Even when they knew the Pinkertons were coming.
Even then, Martin Voss kept going because he understood the choice wasn't really victory or defeat. It was resistance or total surrender to a system that wanted to turn him into a machine.
And resistance is what makes us human.
Absolutely.
So here's our final thought for you to carry away from this. The workers in Breckenridge and Scranton, they knew their fight was, quote, not about wages anymore. It's about whether workers got any rights at all. If that fight for basic dignity, for a voice in your own working life, continues today, what systemic structures are we currently just accepting? What corporate rules, what conditions, what margins are we living with that maybe should be challenged with that same patient, principled resistance Voss learned on the furnace road? Something to think about long after this deep dive is over.